First up, hello everyone. Welcome to the last of our 5-part political webinar series that we've hosted over the past 2 months. It has been really great to gather with customers, partners, and folks that are interested in running for office in 2024. And so today we're going to be closing out with our last session in this series, which is all on Get Out the Vote, which is my personal favorite in terms of the campaign structure. And we've got 2 wonderful NationBuilder All-Stars that are going to take you through today's content. I'm going to disappear off the screen, but I will still be around in the chat. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. And with that, Nubia, I'm going to hand it over to you to kick us off today.
Thank you, Sorge. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Nolan and I really appreciate your time and attention. All right, let's start with a quick intro about me, and then I will pass to Nolan so you can all know who your hosts are. My name is Nubia. I am part of the organizing team here at NationBuilder. Before here, I worked for a nonprofit and at the Senate, in the Bay Area. After that, I joined the last presidential campaign as an organizer in Colorado. You might notice a thick accent while I speak, and it's because I'm originally from Brazil, but now I am based in Los Angeles, California. Nolan, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nolan Bourne. I'm a lead customer support tech here at NationBuilder. Prior to joining NationBuilder, I worked on many political campaigns and in municipal government. And so I have a whole lot of experience with field programs, and I look forward to sharing what we have with you today.
Okay, perfect. Well, as you can all see, this is a live webinar. So if you have any questions while Nolan and I speak, please feel free to drop them down in the chat box, and we'll make sure to get to them as soon as possible. Nolan and I will love to hear other voices than our own. Okay, so let's get started. If you're not familiar with our platform, NationBuilder is the largest digital advocacy platform in the world, and we operate in more than 112 countries. Our mission is to provide leadership tools for political campaigns, elected officials, nonprofits, advocacy groups, and large corporations. Here at NationBuilder, we believe that everyone can lead regardless of who they are, where they come from, or what they believe in. That's why we empower everyone with the right tools and, how I like to say, easy to use technology, so you can all make a positive impact in your communities and be the change that you want to see in the world. And we do that with the help of our core digital tools, which are our dynamic CRM, or how we like to call here, or people section. And it's basically where your data will be stored. Here is where you have the ability to be able to see all your supporters, volunteers, donors, and voters all live and in one centralized database. Here you can also manage individuals with filters, tags, lists, and track what they're doing. Then we have our CMS. This is our website within NationBuilder. So here you can have the ability to build action-oriented web pages to move your supporters into direct action. Whether that action is to sign up on a web page to volunteer for you, or to donate, or to attend a specific event, whatever that might be. We also offer communication tools, so you can directly engage with anyone in your community via emails or text messages. Then we have our fundraising suite. So here you have the ability to process donations and payments efficiently. We also offer a legislative advocacy tool, which is called Action Button, as well as an API system that integrates our platform with other apps and software. And let me talk very briefly about Action Button. Action Button is an interactive button. that can be used for you to engage with your audience and move them to action with just a click. We have more than 11 action types to choose from, and the possibilities, folks, are endless. For example, you can use action button to engage your audience with a sentiment pool or quiz, contact a legislator, or register to vote. Our customers have achieved incredible results using our fully integrated system. Thanks to all the digital tools that I just mentioned to you all, they were able to mobilize more than 327,000 volunteers, send more than 2.3 billion emails. Like, how awesome is that? Okay, now that you have a better idea about who we are as a company and what we provide here at NationBuilder, let's explore today's agenda. First, I will talk a little bit about GOTV and what it looks like on a greater scale. Then, Nolan will cover all the early and the heading processes of GOTV, as well as the best practice once we are into GOTV. Then I will talk a little bit about integrations, focusing on the best apps and software out there that you can use for field canvassing and communication to enhance your mobilizing and outreach efforts during this phase. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let's make today's webinar informative and very interactive. This campaign arc gives us a basic understanding of the trajectory of your campaign. As you can all see right now, we are in the final step called GOTV. This step is super important for winning your election, folks. Just a quick reminder again, Sorge mentioned that earlier. Today is the last webinar, but no worries, you can access all the content shared during the previous 4 webinars. Okay, now focusing on GOTV, this phase brings to you all the groundwork you have laid down. It's where you activate your supporters, make sure they have a plan to vote, and do everything you can that's in your power to get them to the polls. It's literally the most intense and important phase during a campaign. I remember working an average of 7 hours per week during GOTV. I would love to talk about my experience during this phase, but this is a conversation for another time. And as I was saying, GOTV is super important because it isn't just about reminding people to vote. It's about mobilizing and ensuring that every single identified supporter turns their intent into action. And guess what? That's how you win the election. Every call made, door knocked, event hosted, and volunteer hours counts double here. So when we talk about the campaign arc, think of GOTV as your grand finale, okay? It's the final push where every previous effort should translate into votes. On this slide, we are unpacking GOTV. So what is it? GOTV means get out the vote, and our main focus and goal during this phase is to get everyone to the polls. We focus on smart, last-minute outreach, help folks with where and how to vote, and sometimes, honestly, we even give them a lift, okay? It's crucial because it's where we really gather the votes we need. That's GOTV, folks. It's go time. All right. Now that we know what GOTV is, let's dive into the architecture of it. We start by building our base, and that's our foundation, okay? Then we move into the persuasion phase. where we connect and convince, engaging deeply with voters. Finally, we reach the GOTV phase. And again, this is where we turn all of our support into votes and secure our victory. Okay, first things first. Before anything, we need to figure out our vote goal. And it's divided into 2 steps. Please pay attention, folks, because I'm going to do some math with you guys here, okay? First, we need to guess how many people will actually vote using election stats, and then know how many voters we need to win. Okay, based on a fictional campaign, okay? Let's guess the voter turnout by analyzing a past election. Then multiply that by the number of registered voters to get our goal. So let's say that based on previous elections, we think that we might have a 35% voter turnout this year, okay? Then we can multiply this number by the total number of, then we can multiply this number, but by the total number of registered voters in this district by 35%. And let's say this number is 26,000. So, math right now, okay? So 35% multiplied by 26,000 will be 9,100 votes. I hope I got this math right, because I'm not really good at math. Okay, then we need to calculate the number of votes needed to actually win, which we call the win number. For our fictional race, we got an estimated 9,100 voters showing up, right? To find the win number, we take half of that, okay? So the half of 9,100 is 4,550, and add one more vote. And voila, here is our magic number, folks. We need 4,551 votes to secure a majority. Just one more than half is what it takes to win this election. And let me just emphasize something. Securing a majority means getting more than half of all votes cast in an election. It's the minimum you need to win if the election is decided by a simple majority. The candidate will win as long as she or he has over 50% of the total. Does that make sense? I know it was quite a lot of math right now. If so, send a high five for us in the chat box. Okay, now that we have reviewed the architecture and theory of GOTV and know how NationBuilder can support your efforts, Nolan will discuss the early stage of this phase with you all. Nolan, kicking to you, my friend. Showtime.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my idea, a part of this is to show you things that will both make your lives easier and enable you to create the best possible GOTV plan. And we'll follow up with some guides, and of course, NationBuilder customer success team is ready to answer any of your questions later on. So one of the best lessons that I have learned in the field on campaigns is that early organizing is critical and will save you so many headaches down the line. And there are a few things that you can do now to set things up that will help out when you're in the actual process of GOTV. So data. You must have good, accurate data in order to run a successful GOTV campaign. You don't want to be wasting your precious time contacting voters who you shouldn't be. And NationBuilder gives you the tools to keep track of that data and be able to use and organize and communicate with your voters and supporters. Next slide. So one of the first steps you can do is building your infrastructure and create your infrastructure now. Because as you're doing your outreach and voter contact, there is info right now that you can record that will be beneficial during GOTV. So just some of those things that you can set up, create paths. Paths are a great way if you want to move someone along a process and keep track of each step. Those can be for volunteers. So for example, you start a volunteer path, you call them to ask to volunteer, could be a next step. And then the next step is signed up for a volunteer shift. And then finally, final step, completed the volunteer shift. And these are great to use during GOTV because you can see if someone who committed to volunteer during the persuasion phase of your campaign, but maybe didn't complete their shift for some reason, you can give them another touch and say like, hey, missed you. Sorry you weren't able to show up, but we're doing GOTV. We need all of our volunteers possible. Can we get you signed up again? That's a great way of doing that. Another path can be to reach out if they wanted a yard sign. So first, like identify somebody you want to ask, first step. Next step, they actually requested the yard sign. And then final step, yard sign placed. So not only is that a great way of tracking who's requested a yard sign and who's placed the yard sign, but again, you can use that during volunteer recruitment during GOTV. Another thing you can build right now is your volunteer pages. So you can set them up so they get the appropriate tags with the volunteer roles, whether they want to phone bake, canvas, and you can automatically add them to a path and add custom tags. So again, collecting that data now so you can use it later. Finally, another thing is auto tags. So we have a feature in NationBuilder where you can build a filter and save it, and then add and then there's another feature within that saved filter where you can automatically add a tag to folks who fit that criteria, even if it comes after you've initially created that filter. So I'm just going to go back to use yard signs as the example again. If it is somebody who has completed a yard sign path, and you want to make sure you also getting that tag, once you complete the path for a yard sign and you've delivered it, and they will fulfill that filter, and then they can get that tag auto added to their profile. All right, next slide. Speaking of that data, so in our field webinar a couple of weeks ago, we talked about voter identification and field tactics. So we're not going to go in depth with that. The basics were you collecting those IDs 1 through 5 to gauge voter support. And then you would spend most of your time persuading those undecideds and then just tracking the 1s and 2s, those that are supporting your campaign. You can take a look at our field webinar and our help guides to see how you can set up that voter identification system. But right now I'm just going to talk about those 1s and 2s. So you're going to want that clean data and ensure that all of those 1s and 2s are getting recorded during your outreach phase of the campaign so that you can filter them when building your lists. Another thing when it comes to data, one of my favorite things is using volunteer recruitment. GOTV is the most volunteer demanding thing you will do on your campaign. You need to reach the most voters in a much smaller amount of time. So again, you should start now to build up those lists of potential volunteers. How? So you can keep track of actions your supporters are taking. So again, request a yard sign, make sure you're recording that with a tag or path. Came to an event, do the same. So basically any positive action a supporter takes that goes beyond just saying they will vote for you or your candidate is a good volunteer prospect to reach out to during GOTV. And the great thing about NationBuilder is a lot of these actions are recorded automatically. You just need to filter for them later, just such as RSVPing to an event on your website. You can share an event early on in the campaign. It could be anything. And those RSVPs get tracked and you can filter for them later on, again, to kind of expand your list of potential volunteers. So I think it's impossible to have too much information as long as it's organized. So any personal preferences volunteers or voters share early on in your voter contact, you can get recorded to use during GOTV. So for example, if someone says they can only make calls and they can't canvass, you're going to want to record that so you can make the appropriate ask during GOTV. Same thing, if someone says they need a ride to a polls during your initial voter outreach, it could be months even before the campaign. Being able to record that and call them during GOTV and say like, hey, I know we talked to you a couple of months ago and say you need a ride, let's call and set that up for you. So that type of organizing of data can go a long ways, and it's going to really save your campaign time. All right, we do next slide. Okay, so now that we have the early organizing done and you've been collecting that info for months, you can start setting up your GOTV plan. So first thing is build your list of ones and twos with saved filters. Kind of like saying before, you can just do a creative filter and just find all your ones and twos that you've been collecting. The other list that you can build is your master volunteer recruitment list, again, with saved filters. So you can, all in one filter, you can add everything that you've been collecting, the tags, the past volunteer shifts, the past RSVPs, all of that can be collected using a filter in a master volunteer recruitment list that you can use to call and reach out to. Right, next slide. So when setting up your nation for GOTV, I think these are three of the top things I think you should do before GOTV. So the volunteer event pages, your scripts and surveys, and your vote plan page. And so we're going to go into in depth a little bit in each of those. So next slide. So first is the scripts, sheets, and surveys. So before you actually start GOTV, know what you're going to say and how you're going to communicate with your voters during GOTV. Train those your volunteers to stick to the script and explain to your volunteers why it's important and why the language that you are using helps increase turnout. And I know you can reach out to party affiliates. There's a lot of information on Google on what makes a good GOTV script there. So and get your sheets ready. So by sheets, I mean your call sheets, your Canvas sheets. Those can be digital or paper. And so after you lock in your GOTV universe, you can create your full list of voter contact sheets, attach them to your surveys, add your scripts, cut your turf. Again, we have the resources that show you how to do all of these things. And we're going to be sharing some of those guides after, and you again can reach out to our support team for that. Okay, next slide. So going a little bit more in depth into the volunteer event pages. So the best way to both have your supporters directly sign up to volunteer and for you to sign them up for volunteer shifts, if you're just calling them and asking them, is to use our event pages with shifts. So here you can create an ongoing event. So like you can have one for phone banking and one for canvassing, and you'll just create that event duration for the entire allotment of volunteer hours you have that you need to fill during that day. And then you can go in and create individual shifts where one shift equals one volunteer shift. And volunteers can go in and can sign up for one or multiple. And then after you got that set up, you can go ahead and clone those events for all of your volunteer days that you need to fill. So you don't have not completely recreating that event every time. And the great thing about these events is that they live live on your website. So you can email them or text out these events and ask themselves to volunteer. So now vote plan. So having folks plan out their vote has been proven to increase voter turnout. And you can create a vote plan page simply by just using our basic sign up page and utilizing radio buttons and with tags and even custom fields to plan it out. So you can break it down. Of course, it will automatically include like name, email, phone, that sort of things. But then you can add other things such as ask them to type in like how do they know where their polling location is? Do they know how they're going to get to the voting location? Do they know what time of day they're going to go? You can build it out and ask specific questions. And I know some of them might seem silly. Then the reason doing it is getting people to think about the process of voting and plan out their vote has actually been proven to increase turnout. So that's why we like doing that. All right. Finally, or not finally, but next step is now that you've done early organizing and you prepped for GOTV, it's time to put it all together. So at the core, GOTV is about contacting voters and making sure they vote. Here are a list of some of the most common ways you can do that. The top two are phone banking and canvassing. And we've talked about how you can do that with tools in NationBuilder. But you can use the tools in NationBuilder for all of the others. So you can use your universe, your GOTV universe, for targeted direct mail or targeted digital ads. You can use the blast feature, texting feature within NationBuilder to text and recruit volunteers. If your supporters have opted into text messaging, you can just send them a blast text asking them. Or even just confirming a volunteership is a great way to use blast text and save your campaign time. Or you can use a third-party integration that NationBuilder integrates with third parties to use peer-to-peer texting, where you can actually text voters as a way of contacting them, voter contact, to get them out to vote. So yeah, there's a lot of great tools that you can utilize here for any way that you're looking to contact voters. Right, next slide. Recording data. Yes, that is a repeat title there, because that's just how important getting data recorded is. In this stage, it's about recording your data that you're collecting during actual GOTV. And the benefit of this is a couple things. So you are tracking to make sure you're on the path that you want to be for GOTV, to make sure that you're reaching the number of voters that you need to. And it's a great way to track your performance. And then it can lead into the next thing we're going to talk about in pro tips in the next slide. So the pro tips section is kind of things definitely not required. It requires a bit more organizing and planning, and of course having access to some of these things, but it can really elevate your get out the vote effort. So if you do have access to early vote rolls, where you're actually getting a list of folks who have voted early, and your data is already set up in your nation with the same unique IDs, so importing is easy, you can upload that list and create a strike list program and track how well you're doing and remove those who have voted, of course. So it saves your campaign time. So if somebody, of course, has already early voted, there's no sense in trying to contact them again. So same type of thing. You can run an absentee ballot voter chase program. So if you can get a list from your local election division of folks who have requested an absentee ballot, and then they also fall on your list of targeted voters during GOTV, you can reach out to them and just say like, hey, I see that you have an absentee ballot. Just want to make sure if you have any questions to turn it in. And again, it's part of that GOTV program that you can do. All right, that's all I have. So I'm going to turn it back over. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nolan. This was fire. Okay, last but not least, let's boost your GOTV game using some really cool apps and integrations, okay? So through our API system, there are some really cool apps and software that are integrated with NationBuilder, and they can make your on-the-ground campaign efforts so easy, yo. They're great for getting voters to show up and keeping them engaged. These apps includes eCanvasser, Field Edge, Handy Nation, and Supporter Base. So here we are focusing on GOTV communication, again with other apps and integrations. These tools have helped me so much when I was organizing in the last presidential campaign. With no in-person activities allowed because of the pandemic, my team and I relied heavily on digital to keep in touch with voters, volunteers, donors, and supporters. And honestly, not only during the GOTV, but during the whole campaign. So here it's all about texts, calls, and emails to reach out to folks. And apps like Prompt.io, CalHub, CalHippo were crucial for getting our message out without face-to-face interactions. They were our lifeline for the outside world and were game changers for us. So for those of you who are not our customers yet and are really interested in NationBuilder and all the digital tools we offer here, I am sharing this QR code with you all. This code will give you access to our 14-day free trial on our Pro plan, which includes all the tools that we discussed during this demo. And once you sign up, one of our amazing onboarding specialists will schedule a call with you to get you off the ground and running. And I'm also sharing my email in the chat box, so you can all reach out to me directly after the webinar with any questions or curiosities you might have about our platform.